From the OC to Entourage and the Hallmark Channel, you've welcomed her into your home.
That was quite a journey.
And now we're welcoming Autumn Reeser to Intentional Living.
I had my first real awakening at 33, and it was terrifying at the time, to be honest.
As we dive deep into a discussion of awakening,
There is so much projection
yes,
of people when we haven't done the work to see ourselves and see what motivates us and where our actions are coming from. Just that can shift everything.
top conscious parenting,
Our children are extremely intelligent, and they are here to have their own soul journey. And we're here to support them in that. We don't get to control it. We just get to see them and support them and love them as they go through their own human experience.
Like, what better gift can you give your kids than being seen?
and take it back to the good old days.
You were my big sis for...
I remember because we had to buy secret or big sis, little sis gifts.
Yes.
I remember going shopping for you.
And I remember you writing me a note in French one day, leaving it for me at cheer practice.
I won't be speaking in French today. I did not retain very much of it, just so to put all the listeners at ease.
On an all-new Intentional Living with Courtney Meyers. Before we get into the show,
I've got a question. Are you in optimal health? Well, if you're anything like me, I'm sure you're just as confused and overwhelmed with all the information, rules, and advice out there for living your best life. And to make matters worse, you don't know where to turn to get some clarity.
We have to ask ourselves, why is that happening?
But lucky for you, I've got someone that can help.
I made it a part of my mission. Well, I'm going to learn everything I can about health, and happiness, and healing, and thriving, and what that means to be an optimal human. And I'm going to just scream it from the rooftops.
My friend Samantha Lotus has got a new course that will break down everything you need to know to optimize your life and get your health journey back on track.
We have to move away from these rigid structures of you have to be this way, and you have to do this way, and you have to eat this, and you have to follow this. And I don't think that's where it's at.
I know this because she has personally helped me wean off unnecessary medication. She's created a wellness kit for me so that I can optimize my own personal health goals. And she's opened my awareness to the work-life health connection.
That's where it starts.
She's so good at what she does, I know you'll be racing to sign up for her course. Just take a listen to her on episode 99 of Intentional Living, and you won't want to wait.
It's about finding what works for us, and being in the trial and error, and allowing it to be messy and imperfect, and having a lot of grace and compassion with the journey.
Check out Optimum by Samantha Lotus. It's linked below. And if you use my special code, Courtney, you'll get $100 off the course.
It is that balance, and it's finding the right equation for you.
Don't miss out. Welcome to Intentional Living with Courtney Meyers, a podcast dedicated to those seeking a more fulfilled and purposeful life through thought-provoking conversation, spiritual exploration, and authentic connections. The intentional movement has begun, and if you found yourself here, you are a part of it. Intentional Living with Courtney Meyers starts now. Hi, Autumn. Welcome to Intentional Living with Courtney Meyers. I am so excited that we get to catch up. It has been a long time since we've been in the same circle from high school. And it's just, I've watched you do so many great things, and I'm just so glad that we actually get to connect. It's funny because from our little Carlsbad bubble, I feel like I get little tidbits that, my mom is in a group with some of your best friends' moms. And so I've heard your happenings throughout the years, and it's lovely that we actually get to chat now. So thank you for joining me today.
Yeah, this is really, really fun from our little small town bubble to getting to meet in this way. It's really cool.
I know. It's so funny. I was even thinking about it today in the shower about how it's not like we were best friends in high school, but we knew each other. We were on cheer together.
Together.
You were, I don't know if you even remember this. You were my big sis for.
I remember because we had to buy secret or big sis, little sis gifts. I remember going shopping for you.
Yes. And I was thinking, because we both took French, and we grew up in San Diego. For anyone joining us, we grew up in San Diego. The logical thing would be for us to take Spanish. I mean, that only makes sense, right?
Yep. Nope. We just had to do it differently. The alternate language was French. And so that's where we ended up.
I know. And I remember you writing me a note in French one day, or in French, and leaving it for me at cheer practice. So it's just really funny to be here now and see how we just changed. And
I won't be speaking in French today. I did not retain very much of it, just so to put all the listeners at ease.
Well, I know, seriously. And I actually had it as my second major in college for a minute.
That's amazing.
And so you would think I'd actually be able to use it. No, I don't. Like I could say like,
no.
Bonjour. There we go. That's all of it. But thank you for joining me. And it's just so cool because I feel like we've got to see this. I've seen it in you and I've experienced it myself. We both went into the entertainment industry, but over the last couple of years, we've also kind of fallen into this spiritual awakening space, which a lot of the world is doing now. Yeah. But I think as a creative and as an artist, I mean, you've been on so many great shows and you're producing and writing and, all this fun stuff. What I've noticed, and I'm really curious to see if you have you noticed the intersection of art and awakening and awareness and spirituality? Because for me, like I literally will watch some of my favorite movies from high school or whenever. And I look back and I'm just like, wow, I missed this. These are all rooted. Like the creative space is so rooted in the spiritual knowing and awakening. And I think we just aren't aware of it until we are. And then it's like, how did we miss this?
Yeah. Yeah. But also, what I think is so beautiful is art is subjective. And so we're always seeing that which is within us when we're watching something. And I thought of that a lot with Everything Everywhere All at Once. I don't know if you saw that movie. I don't watch very many. Okay. I don't watch very many things at all, pretty much, which is odd considering what I do for a living. But I just don't, particularly over the last 10 years. I used to watch a lot in my 20s and then had an initial awakening experience and find it difficult to watch a lot of things, to be honest. But I'll watch things on a plane. And I watched that movie and was like, oh, this is about a radical spiritual awakening. But for many other people, that is not what it's about.
Yeah.
They're having a completely different experience of it. Or like, I think it's great because I see this in it. Somebody else is like, I don't get it. This movie doesn't resonate with me. And so I also think there's that element too. We're always seeing a reflection of where we're at. Like you can go back and read a book. I don't know if you've ever gone back and read something you read in high school, for example, like Animal Farm. We read Animal Farm. I think Mr. Beauvais tried to teach us. He tried to get us to read Animal Farms and gave up because none of us got it. We were like, I don't understand why we're reading a book about animals. This is stupid. We just had no idea. But then of course you go back later and you're like, oh my God. So
do you think it's an awakening or do you think it's a heightened awareness? That was another thought I had in the shower. I always get like my thoughts in the shower, comes through with the water, something about it. But it's like almost like I get the point where it's like, yes, we're going through an awakening, yet it almost just feels more like we become more aware. It's less of like waking up. It was always there. It's just more of like we're seeing it in a new lens. And
yeah, I mean, I think we're experiencing a massive raising of consciousness on planet Earth, and that appears in many different ways and shows up in many different ways. But I see that happening everywhere. I see it happening everywhere. I think of it also as like a deprogramming too, waking up to programs that we've been running in our subconscious that we're like, this isn't mine and it's not serving me. Where did this come from? I'm going to take this out. I'm going to put this down. And I think the reason a lot of people don't do it initially is because it's painful to release these false belief systems and go, I carried that for so long and I suffered so much from it. So a lot of people don't want to do that work. And I have so much compassion for that because it is painful doing that type of work. Or it can be.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, avoidance is huge. And that's your newest film that you just did is about that. You're about like talking to your inner child, these things that we've carried with us for so long. And I think sometimes it's easy to, put responsibility back on our parents. We have to reparent ourselves or our inner child or what we experienced. And I don't think that that's really what it is. It's just acknowledging this inner child in us, this voice of us, because our children are the most connected, spiritually connected people. They are our best teachers. in reality. And then, so if we can look at ourselves from that way, what did we need to learn from ourselves as a child and take into our adult life? That can really help. So it doesn't need to necessarily be so heavy, but to bring back that inner child, I think is huge, which is what you're doing in your movie Junebug.
Yeah, I did. I executive produced and starred in a movie this summer for the Hallmark Channel called Junebug. It was my 20th movie for them. And I was really passionate about this one because it took me 5 years to get it made, to bring it to the screen. And we went through such a beautiful development process. And the underlying theme of it is healing the inner child. My character, Juniper, is on the eve of her 40th birthday. And she's sort of stuck in a complacent life. Everything's perfectly fine, but nothing is really lighting her up. And she spends a lot of energy and time defending that. Like, I think a lot of us do this. Yeah. And then we have this magical moment where her 8-year-old self appears on the foot of her bed and basically turns over her entire life, saying, this isn't what, you're not happy. It's basically just speaking truth, which is what children are so good at. And it was so much fun to play because it's like living in these two realities. Juniper, who is at work and, you know, having to be in the third dimension. And then she's having this spiritual experience with a being who's not really there, with an imaginary friend, basically, which was the most fun to play. But that's what it's about. It's coming back to these parts of herself that she left behind. So you could call it soul retrieval too, but that's really the underlying theme of the movie. And I did a workshop afterwards, an inner child workshop for people to come along in that journey, people who haven't started that work yet, which you could also call shadow work. You can call this many, many different things, but it's basically just reclaiming the parts of ourselves that we've abandoned. And I think a lot of the reason that sometimes people can be resistant to inner child work or reparenting is because they think it's a dishonoring of their parents or that it's right. And it's really not that. We're all coming out of density right now, including our parents who were born into even more density. Right. And so the compassion that you're invited into in this experience is actually really beautiful because it creates deeper intimacy, not more separation. There might be a period of time where you have to feel these feelings that you didn't feel at the time, the anger, the grief, the frustration, the jealousy, all of that. You have to allow all those to move through. But on the other side is just love. Yeah. Which really is like the theme of all of these movies anyway. So it was so fun for me to figure out a way to weave those together with our writer, Summer Israel Johnson, and our director, David Weaver. It was just a really beautiful experience.
Well, compassion and love, I mean, that's really the core of what we're always trying to get back to, I think. Yeah. But I'm curious, is doing this film, did it help you heal your inner child, get in touch with more parts of yourself? Because I've seen this, like, I think it was Jana Kramer or someone did I don't know if it was Lifetime or Hallmark. She did a film for something. And I remember just seeing her post about this, that like she had to do this scene where she was confronting like an abusive husband or something like that. And now I could be butchering her story. I'm not trying to do that, but something about the fact it was mirroring what happened in her life, that some things that she never got to say and do. And it was like this huge release. And I can only imagine how great it must be for someone like you to be able to like become this person and have those healing moments doing something also you love.
Yeah. And I find that it's kind of always like that. Something that is needing to be healed within me shows up. And I really started to see this. I had my first like real awakening at 33 and woke up to, I had these auditions and they were all mirroring what was going on in my life. Yes. And it was terrifying at the time, to be honest, because I was like really seeing it and going, this can't be real. I woke up in some kind of crazy storybook. Like, what is happening? And now I just think it's fun. Like I experience a lot of my auditions or projects almost the same way that I do dreams. Like there's a message here. Oh, okay. If this is what's coming in, then what am I not seeing? Or sometimes I see it immediately and I'm like, okay, great. Yes. All right. I'm on track. Okay. Or like, and it's gotten a lot easier to say yes and no. Based on the energy of the projects and not trying to be so intellectual about it and not using my mind to decide, but using my heart and my energy to decide what I want to participate in, which I didn't always do. A lot of times it was like, you know, you had the fear of not getting the next job as an artist. You take something that maybe wasn't completely aligned. I'll speak for myself. I would take something that wasn't completely aligned. I don't do that because I'm in deeper faith now. And I'm like, no, if this is a no, if something in me is saying no to this, and it's just a no, I don't need to know why. I actually don't need to explain myself. It's just like, no, my system says no.
Have you been able to let go of the fear? Because I feel like our mind can be so crucial in that moment, like to follow, like, no, I should be doing this. Logically, this makes sense. I feel that battle all the time. And I actually had a session the other day with a quantum healer or quantum doctor that I know. And we actually had this big conversation about it. And I literally, in the middle of it, I stopped him. I'm like, okay, so all this work we're doing, all the self-help that's out there is all focused on the mindset. But we need to throw that shit out the window and really come to our heart. It's like a heart set. Why are we not talking about our heart set? And that was something that was just like, whoa, is this where we need to go? Start dropping into our heart, because spirit, this world, following the energy, it's not logical. It never makes sense, but it makes complete sense when you follow it.
Yeah, it does. And there's that quote, and I forget who says it, but maybe you know it. The longest journey you'll ever take is the 18 inches from the head to the heart.
Yes.
Right. And yeah, I think that's true. And it's really scary when you're starting to live from heart-based consciousness, because you don't trust your heart yet.
Yeah.
Right. You're like, no, but this is what's kept me safe. No, that might have been what's been getting in the way, actually. But the ego will tell you that it needs it. It needs it in order to survive. And the ego is an operating system, right? So it's just doing its job. Like, there's no bad guy here. The ego's not the bad guy. I don't like people making ego the bad guy. It's like, no, it's just the operating system. And it's like, you need to just love it and say to it, okay, yeah, no, thank you for your input. I'm going to drop back here. No, my heart's going to drive. My heart drives the bus. You get to come. All the parts of you get to come on the bus, but my heart's the driver.
How do you lean into that? Because, I mean, knowing everything I know, doing all the work I do, it's like, I know that, but I still struggle sometimes to follow that, because in moments that just don't seem to be going your way, it's just like you want to fall back onto those old devices. It's almost like, you know, your little AI, your little computer. It's just like you go back there, you're protecting yourself. But, you know, we have to lean into these moments that might seem difficult, because what comes out of them is usually so beautiful. So how do you finally take that leap?
I think it's a practice, you know. I think what you're saying, like, oh, sometimes I can and sometimes I can't. I think that's normal. I think that's how it works. I think it's a muscle. And I think the further along you get on the path, the more you get smacked when you don't make a decision from that place. When you make a decision that isn't in alignment, we'll just call it alignment. When you make a decision that isn't in alignment, I see it quicker and quicker, like almost immediately. Like it will be mirrored back in consequences pretty much immediately. Oh, okay. Yep. No, I thought I could get away with that. Nope. Did not get away with that. Right. Yeah. Thank you. And I put up that prayer quite a few years ago to like, no, be firm with me. Be firm with me. I want to live life from the heart. I want to live life in alignment. I want to live a life of service. So be firm with me when I'm off. And definitely had days where I regretted that prayer. Like, oh, you're going to be this strict with me? Yes. Okay. Thank you. Thank you for the teaching. And that I think is the biggest and easiest, simplest instruction to offer as a practice: gratitude. The heart has a vibration of gratitude. So even when I'm in a struggle and I don't like it and the ego's resisting it, and, you know, my small self is going, I don't like this. Why do I have to deal with this? Okay. Thank you for the challenge. Thank you for the teaching. Just that can shift everything. I think, especially as a parent, you know, and you know this, like those really hard days with your kids, and you have really tiny ones, right? Yeah. Where you're just like, I don't want to do this. Like for me, sometimes just making dinner is really hard.
Yes.
It just is. It's really hard. Like I'm overwhelmed. And so I go, thank you for the challenge of making dinner. Sometimes, and like, it just is. Okay. But if I can drop into that space of like, there's no problem. This is exactly what I asked for. This is exactly what everybody needs. There's no problem. Thank you. Then now I'm in the heart.
Yeah. I mean, gratitude is so huge. I've actually literally spent a lot of this summer, working on my gratitude practice itself. And that does bring you back to the heart for sure. Because I think in a way, sometimes we can get ahead of ourselves. And like I will say for the longest time, and I had someone kind of like put me in my place on the show, that gratitude, I was like, it kind of feels routine. And it's like, are you really being grateful for this? And she was just like, it was almost like a slap on the wrist. It was like, you don't understand what gratitude is truly. And I took that to heart ever since she said it to me. And then my mentor said it to me over the summer. I had a very big health scare, and everything ended up turning out okay. But there were a couple of weeks that were really scary where I went through so many tests. Wow. And in my mind, it was like, okay, put it out of my mind. If I don't think about it, it's not real. I'm moving on. I don't have time for this. I was taking all these lessons, like I'm creating my own reality from everyone I've spoken to. And so then I started talking to her, like right after I started to get the results, and everything was okay. And so I was just ready to move forward with my life, just move on. And she's like, Courtney, like, where is the gratitude? It was a scolding like I have never had before. It was almost like a scolding from your parents. Like, where is the gratitude? I would be dropping to my knees. I mean, literally, I was looking at a major cancer diagnosis, two in two different places, like really big things happening. And I was just kind of like, I'm just not believing it's real. If I don't believe it's real, I can move on and live my life. And then it was like, wow, I have missed the point on what gratitude means. And gratitude is a language of the heart. So I think we do get into these routines and we make these spiritual practices like a routine, but we miss the point sometimes. And we have to come back to really what the truth of that is. So everything that we're experiencing is spiritual, and we do need to be grateful for that, even if it is making dinner that I don't want to make dinner. Like, that's just as spiritual as,
everything's
the
a
next
spiritual
thing.
practice. Yeah.
Right.
It depends on how I'm orienting towards it, but everything can be spiritual practice.
Yeah.
Can I ask you a question about your experience this summer?
Of course.
What do you feel is the reason that came in? Like, what is the lesson that is coming out of that for you? And if that hasn't come through yet, you don't have to share, but if it has, I would love to know.
Yeah, I'm still working through what that lesson is. And I'm trying to figure out, it was kind of a take everything down moment, start to get more present in my life. And I think what it did teach me, the one thing that I've realized is I was getting too far away, chasing, all the butterflies and chasing something that wasn't really in alignment for me. I had taken my eye off of my mission and what I truly wanted to create. And so that kind of came to me, but then also it was, I was told I've seen it. I've had MRIs, CT scans, CAT scans, every scan, test, blood work done. Wow. I have an 8.6 centimeter mass on my liver and a 2, almost 3 centimeter lesion on my kidney. This is what came out, all these tests. So it was very like abrupt and scary. Turns out both are benign, like crazy. But the thing is it's there. Like the mass on your liver, it's still there. Like something caused that. Now, it could have been from birth. It could have been from whatever. What I've learned from a lot of my spiritual teachers and practices is the liver holds anger. And that's where there's a big source of anger. So I'm still trying to do that inner work to figure out where that source of anger comes from. And that's interesting. You would think someone tells you that, and you would think about where it is, and you'd just be like, okay, I know. Like, I know where that anger is being held on to. But it's not always that simple. Like, I can't tell you exactly what I'm so angry about. So it's definitely a process that I'm looking forward. I actually have an EMDR session tomorrow that I'm just like
amazing,
so excited to do, because, who wants to go into the self-help space and dig up all, like you said, it can be hard, but like, I'm a dork like that. I'm like, yes, give me the work so I can evolve and so I can change. And I think that's what's so beautiful about like what you're doing too, is that, you can go through those emotions and allow yourself to feel. And I think when we can do that, like, it's amazing.
Wow. Yeah, that's beautiful. And like anger, I think we have a lot to be angry about.
Yeah.
And sometimes we don't need to even know exactly what it is from the head. It's just stuck energy that needs to move. And my friend Noelle is in the process of creating a course called Alchemizing Anger, because she's been super helpful with me with processing that when it comes up. Because a lot of times we go, I shouldn't be angry about this. It doesn't make sense. It's okay for it not to make sense. It doesn't need to make sense. The truth is, and I've been so blessed to have all of these women around me who are very embodied and very much physical teachers of feeling. And I've always had these women who've said, you feel what you feel. There's no problem. You're allowed to feel what you feel. It's just, what do we do with that then? And so I've had these beautiful women that I just call up and be like, here's the experience I'm having. And they all have different practices for it. So yeah, Christy Salerno is one of them who offers teachings online. And then Noelle Ely is another one. But very, very grateful for their support in that. I'm very grateful for your good health. And what a wild experience. And one thing I'll say that I've seen in my clients and working with people is when they've had big health scares, it's almost across the board been an invitation into greater simplicity. And I feel like there's a quality of time that has changed here that is asking us to do less and with more intention. Kind of like what you were picking up on in that, and a little bit about what we were talking about before this call a little too. Like, okay, how can I do less, but with more intention, more passion, more love behind it, which is really hard when we're a mother of small children.
Well, when you're a mother, when you're ambitious, when you are creative, when you want to do all things, it's like, how do you do it all? But even, I mean, I've joked about this on the show before. It's like, I think in general, getting back to simplicity, whether that's in your life or just in the way we are living and, overall, like I've started to try and grow some of my own food. We shop at farmers markets, let's add some more to the plate, let's find the homestead and just add more on. But, we've gotten so far.
Get a bunch of goats.
Serious. I live in Tennessee. I can now, but, I'm not in LA anymore, but we're missing something. I think we have gotten so far away. And I think what the spiritual world and these spiritual teachings are all telling us is, let's get back to simple things. Let's get back to just the gratitude of the heart. Let's get back to the family meals. And I know that sounds Susie Homemaker, but it's not. And I mean, for me, it's definitely more possible moving to where I am, although it is very, it's not so much. It's not that much different than LA. But I mean, where you are, it's a little bit harder to do that. We grew up like that. We grew up a lot simpler than I feel like. And I'm curious that even with your children, how have you seen them, grow? Your boys are teenagers now. Your sons, at least one of them is a teenager.
They're preteens. They're 10 and 13.
Oh my God.
I know. It's wild. I think parenting for me, and I'm a single parent as well, it requires a lot of grace of like, okay, we can do this, but we can't do this. And the thing that I really do is like, I refuse to take on things that create stress around time. Like I won't drive them to 8 different activities during the week because it is too stressful. Now we're running late. Now we need a uniform and it's at their dad's house. And now we need this. And now we need this. And when are we going to eat? And they each have a thing. No, we're not doing that because it doesn't allow me to be as present. And because now I'm stressed. And when I'm stressed, now I'm not pleasant to be around. It's like, so I cut that off at the root of it, wherever I can. And look, it's not always possible. Sometimes like we have a lot of things to do. It's not always possible. And there's the grace. But for the most part, I'm like, we are not going to come and do 3 things. We're going to do 1. We're going to do 1 and we're going to do it well and with full presence. And that's just what has worked best for us, because it's then allowed me to be fully present to, like, when my sons are having a fight, like then I have the presence and energy to deal with it, because we don't have to be somewhere else in 5 minutes and we're like in between activities. And so that's one way that I've dealt with it, particularly in a city with all this traffic and things are far away, and our lives are already complicated with the fact that I travel for work and it's a split household, and like it's just a lot already. And so being able to say, and this is enough. This is enough, and I don't have to do all of the things. I'm going to do these things, and I'm going to do these things really well.
Well, I think one thing I've seen you post before, I saw you post before about one of your sons. I forget which one it was, but you said something that your son felt seen. And I saw you make that post about that was one of the most proud moments you had as a parent. And I had a very similar moment with my daughter over, last year for her dance recital. She had this whole we gave her a bouquet of flowers at the end, and we had these little mini bouquets. My mother-in-law was with us. We gave her a couple, and her girlfriend, her little best friend, got this massive big bouquet of flowers. And I thought, oh no, Harper's going to be really upset. She only got these little ones. Well, it turns out her friend was upset. She didn't get the sweet little one, and she was throwing this whole fit. They're 4 years old. They're, just so devastated. And without anything, we're all walking to the car together without any prompting from me. My daughter goes, Mommy, I need to go see Madison. She let go of my hand and let go of my mother-in-law's hand. She walked up to her and said, Here, Madison, and gave her a bouquet of flowers. She's like, I don't want you to be sad. I love you. And handed, or something along those lines, and handed her the flowers. And then she ran back up to me, and my friend, who is Madison's mom, looked at me, was just like, Did you tell her to do that? It's like, no, it's just like so cool
so
when
beautiful.
when you can see that in your children. And I think when we have moments like that as parents, that's what tells us we're doing the right thing. I think that is probably to date my proudest moment as a parent, that she picked that up somehow. I didn't tell her to do that. Just like your son felt seen. Like, what better gift can you give your kids than being seen? Because a lot of us, I don't think we're seen. We played these roles in our lives to be whatever we were supposed to be. And I think that was the norm for our generation growing up. But now we're a generation of parents that try to see our kids and be present. And it's a tall order, but it's just so rewarding when you actually can see those results.
Yeah. And how beautiful. I love that story about your daughter so much. And it speaks to the demonstration of how you live that she's been seeing, of just your way of being. She picked that up, right? She's not attached to this. There's plenty to go around. Yeah. And her friend is having a sad day. And so it's very easy to just offer this. That's so beautiful. Just what a generous soul, generous heart. But yeah, I think one thing that I've always found really challenging in the parenting community, and sometimes why I've stayed away from things of like soccer games and things like that, is because there is so much projection of people when we haven't done the work to see ourselves and see what motivates us and where our actions are coming from. And this is inner child work, or this is shadow work. It's whatever you want to call it. But really, it's the work of intimacy with the self, looking within, into me, I see. Is when we haven't done that work, we're projecting all those shadow pieces onto our kids. And I see that so often in the parenting community. And it has been challenging for me sometimes to be in that environment, because I just want to be like, oh my God, please stop. Please stop. Please stop. Because I see how it's affecting their kids, but ultimately that's their journey, and everybody's journey is perfect for them. And that's been the work that I've needed to do, is just like not feeling like I need to save or control everybody. Yeah. That was quite a journey. But yeah, I think when we show up for ourselves and do this work, and and make the time to do this work, then we're less likely to work these things out through our children.
So do you truly believe that we are all having the experience that we are supposed to have? Or do you believe that some people have not become, and this, as it's coming out of my mouth, that sounds judgmental, but like, I'm not trying to be judgmental, but some people are just unconscious. You know, some people will not wake up. And do you think that that is a choice that they are supposed to have, like a non-awakened life, an unconscious existence? Or do you think we all have to find that awakening, that awareness of self, of what we're experiencing, and we're doing it all, like that's our path?
That's such a great question. And I feel like I've looked at this from many different angles and from many different teachers. And I don't know that I've landed on what I feel is the truth about that, because there are some teachings that say, hey, there might be a soul that's just having a rest life. Yeah. Right. They're not here to do big things or to have a big experience. Like they're just here to experience a very simple life of what it is to be human. Or this is a really early soul. And so they're just learning, like, what are the rules on planet Earth? So there's many different teachings. I know for myself is most of the people that I vibrate with and that are my friends and in my community are people who are interested in having a transformational experience here, or having an awakened spiritual experience here in a human body. That tends to be my community, and the people who come to work with me tend to be people who are on the path of spiritual awakening and transformation. So that's what I'll say. That's the best answer I can give.
Yeah, no, I mean, I struggle with that too. It's like, okay, are you just having that, you know, that easy life, that rest life? Or are you here to play a role in my life or someone else's life, to show them the duality, to show them, to mirror back something that we need to learn? There's a lot of people, from what I can gather, that are here to just play as a player in your existence, to help you learn those rules, whether that be a parent or a friend. I even just thinking about it, I'm on like this whole like dance thought process is, you know, I moved away from Southern California for a different life for my children and my family. Yet there's a whole group of people at the little dance center my daughter was at. And it's just like, oh my God, I feel like I'm back in Mean Girls. I feel like I'm back in, you know, at USC, so in my USC sorority life, or, you know, back in cheerleading, you know, it's just like, they're still there, like, okay, what is, and then I take it back to myself. It's like, what is this teaching me? Like, I wanted this more like genuine, real, like dialogue. And then at the same time, there's wonderful women that are accomplished women that are starting to come into my life more, that I would have never been open to had I stayed where I was. So it's kind of like trying to understand the rules. And like you said, everyone's a mirror. So what do these people, and how can we look at them, and how can we take that into our growth and our evolution?
Yeah. I mean, I think for me, the best approach to just everyday life is that everyone is God. Everyone is a fractal piece of God. Even if they're completely asleep and doing horrible things in the world, there is a spark of the divine in there. And so I approach everyone as my teacher. And the most difficult people in my life have also been the greatest teachers, because of what I have been required to source and know about myself from within myself in order to meet their teachings, which have not been pleasant. But I, to this day, will be like, thank you. Like the gratitude that I have for these people, not every day, not when I'm in the thick of one of the lessons, but seriously, when I'm in prayer or meditation, or like, I just sit there in awe and gratitude for the fact that they're playing that role in my life, as painful as it's been, because of who it has forced me to become.
Yeah. There are no accidents. I mean, I do truly believe, and everything has been orchestrated for us to help us evolve in some way, shape, or form. Even if it is a rest life, you are still going to have some sort of evolution in some way. I can't see the world without that now. I think since I've really stepped into this space, because it took me a while, I feel like I was in and out of the spiritual world for years before I kind of came out of my spiritual closet and said, okay, we're going to talk about this stuff. This is real. And now I get so passionate about it. It's like you want to bring it into everything in your life. But sometimes it is just a rest moment, and something just is because it is. Like, we also have to find that balance of our humanity and our spiritual evolution.
Yeah. And I think there are different, different phases because I've gone through phases where it's very intense. I'm doing a ton of study and a ton of spiritual practice and a lot of meditation and a lot of learning and growth. And it's basically all I want to do is an input moment, right?
Yeah.
Here's the moment to just really soak everything in. And then there are other moments to integrate and to practice everything that you've just taken in. And it makes sense because the heart moves like this and the lungs move like this, right? In, out, expansion, contraction. So of course our learning process moves that way too. Okay, I'm taking everything in and now I'm in a season of practice. And now I'm in a season of taking in and now I'm in a season of practice. So just allowing that to be so that it doesn't all have to be the same. And if you're really present and really listening, your body already knows which of those phases it wants to be in. And it's only our mind that's trying to prevent it by saying, no, it's supposed to be like this, or here's how I've always done it. But if we get quiet and tune into the body is already giving us instructions.
I love that, because sometimes you'll give yourself a lot of crap for like not reading that book or taking it all in. But sometimes we're not in the state we need to be living as opposed to receiving, and we need to be practicing. And that's why they call it a spiritual practice. But, I've said this before too. I feel like sometimes I'm drinking out of a fire hose of spiritual knowledge, because I talk to so many people on the show. I have so many experts, from psychologists to doctors to spiritual teachers to, you name it. It's like, there's so much information coming at us. Sometimes it's like, how do you incorporate this into your life and how do you make it a practice? And I had Marianne DeMarco, she's the media mentor on the show once. And she said to me, Courtney, did you take care of your kids today? I'm like, yeah. She's like, well, that's a spiritual practice. Like, stop beating yourself up that you didn't meditate. You're in a phase. You're in a phase of practice. It's like we have to give ourselves grace. Just because we're not meditating every day and we're not grounding and we're not doing, all these different things doesn't mean we're not practicing our spirituality. And it doesn't mean we're not learning. It's coming from so many different ways. So I love that give and take and that growth.
Yeah. Yeah. And your body might be saying, hey, let's take a pause. Let's take a moment of integration.
Seriously.
Because you're such a hard worker.
You do that. It's funny. I've literally pulled out the puzzles and just like, I'm back to puzzling. And that is the interesting thing, I will say, is when your body like smacks you upside the head and says, no, we're going to stop because I was forced to stop. What do you revert to in those moments? And this can bring us back to that inner child work. We revert back to the things that we used to love as a child. We get away from that so often. And we need to remember, just like your character in the film, like what sparks us, what brings us life. Literally doing puzzles and reading and watching movies, and things like that have brought me so much more joy in this pause that I disregarded. We disregard because we have to do. And I love this quote from another one of my guests. We're not human. We need to stop being human doing. We need to be a human being. Like, we need to live. We need to exist as opposed to do. So I love that you're doing that with your children, but it's the same thing. When you're told to stop, what do you do? What lights you up? And we need to get back to that part of our inner child as well.
Well, I have a teacher who says spiritual practice is only that which is joyfully done. And I really love that idea. And it's so funny. I have a word every year and I let it come through me. It doesn't come from up here. I mean, it used to when I was first doing this, but now it comes through me and tells me what it's going to be. So I don't always have one by January 1st. It doesn't always work that way in conversation. So the word that came through this year was play, which I was not real happy about because it's not the easiest space for me to go to. I was like, I'm much better with the disciplined. I'm just better with that. In the past, I have been better with, oh no, it's going to be this. It's going to be focus. It's going to be generate. It's going to be whatever. Right. So nope. Spirit said the word is play. And that has been the lesson all year. How can I do this with more ease? How can I do this with more joy? How can I be more expressed? How can I meet social media from just a place of play. It's not serious. There is so much intensity in the world right now. Everything that I think is like so important is not. So because I have the privilege of being in this life and in this space, like, why can't I do it with more ease and joy? Why can't I play more? And it's been one of the most profound spiritual lessons being taught through joy and ease.
Well, that just shows me that you're very connected to your spirit, because when we do the spiritual work, our spirit speaks through joy. It speaks through laughter. It speaks through play. It's not strict. We're not like in some Catholic, school being hit over the hand with, a ruler. Like when we get those messages, it's when we're in a place of ease. It's when we're in a place of receptivity. And it is really when like you're having fun or you're relaxed. And that is so much. But I'm like you too. It's just like, let's go. It comes with ambition. I think it also comes from birth order. We're both firstborn daughters. It's like we're raised you're raised as the male in the family. It's just, that happens. And it's just also, I don't know what your human design is, but if you're a generator.
I was going to ask you about yours. I was like, are you a generator? Because you have so much energy.
I'm a generator. Yeah. Yes. And so you have to look at it and it's like, just go, 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 go. You're like the Energizer bunny. But when you're in those states, you're not going to be as connected spiritually.
Yeah. Well, the funny thing is I burnt out my adrenal system by the time I was 30 because I'm going so hard and living life like a generator, and I'm a projector, and finding human design was one of the most transformative moments in my life because it made everything make sense to me. I was like, no wonder things weren't working for me like this, because projectors were 20% of the population and were non-energy types, and were designed to do things completely differently than 70% of the population. Because I think the other 10% is manifestors. So like, we're not supposed to be doing things this way. And when I just gave myself the permission to be like, I don't have to do things that way, it was like everything got so much easier, and I didn't burn out my adrenal system all the time and throw out my neck. That was the other way my body was speaking to me. I was a dancer, and my neck was constantly frozen. I was constantly throwing it out, not getting treatment for it, and then walking around with a stiff neck for like days after dance class, because it was like I was just going at life too hard. And it's been a real journey to be back to, okay, what actually needs to be done. And there are seasons where it is hard, especially when I'm working and parenting at the same time. And I'm working these, 12 to 17 hour days, and it's very intense. And then there'll be a period where I get to recover, but that is what I never allowed myself before. I was like, no, I got to go right on to the next thing and right on to the next thing. And I've got to be producing, but that's from the false culture. This idea that we have to be producing in order to have value.
Yes.
And in order to be safe, as opposed to realizing like, no, if I come back to center and I just breathe and I find joy, ideas will drop in and instructions will drop in and the next step will drop in. And I don't have to know what comes a year from now. I don't have to go what comes 6 months from now. I only need to know what is the next right step to take. That's it.
I'm curious, in this matrix, in this world we're living in, who created this structure? There's a lot of talk about that, the work weeks and the school system. And, I even question the school system. Like, what am I doing with my children? Like, do I want them to be in a normal school? For lack of a better way right now, they will be because I'm not a homeschool parent, but I think there's better systems, Yeah. There's this false reality that you're talking about that we're living in. Like, it's like, to me, it had to have been designed by some sort of a generator or someone that saw this vision that they need to create a society of generators. Now that's how I thrive. That's great. But that's the greatest thing about human design is it gives you permission to step into who you truly are. I gifted my husband for Christmas a human design reading, and he literally came out like crying, like, I finally feel seen.
What is he? What's his
He's
design?
a generator also, but I forget all the stuff in it. But like literally, it was like a very intuitive, this woman is wonderful. Dang. that did his reading, and then he even did, I think it was his Saturn return or one of them also. And I'm like, I have to get mine done, because it's just giving yourself permission to feel seen and to show up in your design is liberating.
Yeah. Yeah. And I love what you were just saying, like, hey, which of these systems do we want to keep going forward? Right. Like, and the way that I've been able to see it, our role, I feel very much is like, we're a bridge generation between a lot of old paradigms that are falling away. I prefer to use the word dissolving as opposed to burning down. It feels a little gentler. Are dissolving or falling away as we move into a new paradigm. It can feel overwhelming. Like I have to fix all of this and I have to know how to fix it. No, we all have to do this together. And so sometimes the way that I've been seeing it is like just putting the light of consciousness onto it. Like I see this, I see that it doesn't work, shifts the collective. That can be enough. So one of the ways that I've been approaching it as an example, like I have never liked the way that we've taught history. I remember being at ninth grade. Who did I have for ninth grade history? I think it was Deirdre's mom. I'm forgetting her last name. But I remember being in history class and going, why are we being taught history this way? It's just a bunch of dates and wars. Like what would I have been doing? What were the people wearing? What were they eating? What was their daily life like? Why is none of that here? I mean, that's barely touching on the surface of like what I find problematic about the way we teach history. But my son has come home from school right around, the same age that I was becoming aware of this, 7th grade, and gone, what's wrong with history class? This is really, come home, because he's very awake. And so the way that I've been handling it, I'm also not a homeschooling parent. It is not, I learned that during COVID. I knew that about myself, but I really learned it during COVID. This is not my skill set. This is not my skill set. And so as much as people run around going homeschool is the way, it can be for you. It doesn't work for everybody, particularly for a single parent household. Like that is it's not going to work here. So the way that I've addressed it is just saying, yes, I also don't love the way that history is taught in the current system. I have decided that I'm not going to dedicate my life to changing that system. So instead, I'll stand with you in awareness of that it's not a healthy way to be teaching history. It's not the totality of what we should be learning. There's a lot that's left out. And we can just stand in that knowledge together. And that's okay. He can still go to class and he can still pass his class and be present in it. But unless I'm going to put in the energy to change that entire system, which I know that I'm not because I'm called to other things in this lifetime, then I don't need to complain about it or address it even further with that. I can't believe they're blah, blah, blah. No, we see it. We recognize it. We both agree that we don't like it. That's what we're going to do. But we're not going to sit and dwell on it and complain about it. We're just going to be with the reality of it. And other people are going to come in and shift that system because that's their instructions.
Yeah. And I even brought that up with my mentor. Like, I'm really struggling with this idea of how things are taught in school. And she said, it serves its purpose, but you fill in the blanks at home. And so you standing with him in that, I moved to a place where it's very interesting. The Civil War was fought right here where I live, and, going to these places and experiencing it with our children, it's like, it's different perspectives, I think experiences can teach so much. And I think in the perfect world, if I had all the money in the world, I would have mentors that would teach the curriculum in the way that I could see, I think but that's not here or there. So it's like, we do our best. And for me, as the kids get older, it's like, let's take them and have experiences. Let's take them to Europe. Let's take them to experience these cultures, because we will get so much more knowledge from that than sitting in the classroom and learning about, and who wrote that history book, the people that won. We don't know the reality of it. So, it's more of like, experience it, or let's, do a little trip and take ourselves down that space as opposed to forcing it. But, that is the reality that we live in right now.
Yeah. And also the thing that I always keep in mind is our children chose to be born here and now. They didn't choose to be born in a world that's perfect and it's a bubble and it's everything that we would want.
Yeah.
They're here now in a time when we're shifting from one paradigm to another. So they're here for this experience. And so I don't need to shield them from it or pretend that it's something other than it is. I can just put the light of consciousness on it and we can look at it and be in it. And I really try to really try to not make anybody a bad guy, because I don't, or anything, or even the system's a bad system, you know, or to label it with that, because that's oppressive too, to say this is bad, right? It's like, it's not great. I just go, this is what is, here's how I see, how are you feeling about this? And literally just the light of awareness, I think, is all that's needed most of the time, because your children, our children are extremely intelligent, and they are here to have their own soul journey. And we're here to support them in that. We don't get to control it. We just get to see them and support them and love them as they go through their own human experience.
It's wild when we think that we chose these paths and we chose to be born in this time, and what we're seeing. I mean, we're seeing it change right before our very eyes, and it is crazy. So if we want to work with you, I know we can see all of your work on the Hallmark channel. We can see you in your past episodes of Entourage, see all the fun things that you've done. But how do we get in touch with you if we want to go on our spiritual journey with you in your community? I know you have a book club too, don't you?
Yeah. So I have a community for transformation called Earth School, and you can just access it on my website, Autumn Reeser. And we are literally just students of being human together. It's a place to do that. I started a book club last year and had a really great response to it. So I decided to expand that into more of a community. So we didn't have to just have these conversations just through books. They can be jumping off points, but we work on different practices and we just hold each other in community during these really crazy times. Because I feel like that's really what is being called for, and there different types of communities are popping up all over the place, and you have this one here, right, with your listeners and viewers. And so if people want to check out my offerings, they can go to my website, autumnreeser.com, and it's all there, including one-on-one work as well.
So exciting. I am so glad we got to talk today. Thank you so much for joining me, and we get to catch up after. God, I mean, acting like I can't even do the math.
3 years. We graduated 3 years ago.
No, I mean, we were watching the Olympics. My husband was looking up the women's gymnastics team, and we were looking at their birth dates. We were like, oh, wow, you were born the year we started high school. You were born the year after we graduated. Like, wow, we feel old.
Yeah, I was like, oh, yeah, I was getting my first kiss the year you were born. That's cool.
That's cool.
No problem.
Yeah, we'll just keep going. We'll just keep living this life.
No, but it's amazing. The younger generations, I think, are so amazing and so much more awake. And I have so many spiritual teachers who are younger than me. Like, I'm just going to get out of the way. Please deliver your wisdom, right? So, But this was beautiful to reconnect, and I love the work you're doing in the world. And thank you for reaching out and for having me.
You too. We'll talk soon.
Okay.
And that's it for today's Intentional Living with Courtney Meyers. Thank you so much for joining us. And thank you, Autumn Reeser, for the great conversation and the mini catch-up. If you want to work with Autumn, I'll put all the information in the show notes below. And as always, you can find Intentional Living with Courtney Meyers and Intentional Media on our website at CourtneyMyers.com. That's where you find our books, our courses, and everything else we have coming up soon. I'll talk to you later. Bye.